and then we're...
So you are yourself.
Yeah, we are ourselves.
You are the victims of terrorism.
You're different victims showing a different stories, not just like one similar event, like different ways.
I understand. What are the stories? Are they real stories? Because there are real stories around you, right? You just experienced 6 months of real terrorism, real time on your generation. What do you want to be achieved? Like, what do you want? What's the get out?
To people to, America to listen.
Very few people that can, like, they think about this. Like, oh, that, like, America terrorizes its own victim. So we also, like, I really want to just get across that they need to acknowledge that they're being terrorized. Because we can't accept the whole country to turn around if they can't realize what's happening. That they need to acknowledge what they're doing, because they can listen and just
Okay,
be like,
so you
oh.
want reparations. Yeah. Because so there's a movement in Chicago for reparations, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a demand. So this whole thing is now victims of terrorism. We want our 40 acres and a mule. You didn't give it to us the first time. Let's go. And so then that means y'all need to research the ordinance that's been put on the table. There's an ordinance that's on the table right now that's for victims of police abuse, victims of police abuse / terrorism. You know, maybe you want to narrow it in.
The reparations ordinance was introduced at City Council in October of 2013. The reparation ordinance itself came out of the work of the Chicago Torture Justice Memorials, which came together in early 2011 after John Burge, a police officer who had been responsible for directly and indirectly torturing over 118 black men and women in Chicago over a period of 20 years, from 1972 to 1991. The important thing to note is that he was then convicted in 2010 for perjury charges about lying about his participation in torture. He was never really convicted or held to account for the actual torture that he either did himself or authorized his men, mostly men, to do, who were fellow officers. So out of that period of kind of people not knowing what else to do around quote-unquote getting justice, the Chicago Torture Justice Memorials emerges with an idea to ask artists and other people to envision kind of a more expansive view of what justice might look like for torture survivors. And they use the arts to push that. They ask people for speculative memorials. The ordinance becomes a part of those speculative memorials, something that people could, kind of think about and help to kind of consider an alternative view of what justice might look like for survivors of police torture. Because of the confluence of the trip to Geneva, the Ferguson uprisings, the Black Lives Matter kind of revival of people really wanting to focus on pushing for justice through that mobilization. And so we began to think about what would we do in a concerted effort to try to pass the reparations ordinance. We decided that right after We Charge Genocide did an open kind of report back to the community where I think almost 300 people showed up for that at Roosevelt University in early December, that we would announce a march the next week, several mile march, 5 mile march from the Chicago Police Headquarters over to City Hall. And that was, I think that happened on December 16th, and that kind of was the official kickoff for what we began to call the ROM Rep Now, Reparations Now, mobilization and campaign. But of course you know that we were standing on the shoulders of people who'd been already fighting for 30 years before that to try to bring this torture to light, to try to get the Death Row 10 off death row, to try. So it's part of this longer, ongoing struggle for justice for police torture survivors. So it's not a struggle that's decontextualized from the history of the other struggles that have happened. And in fact, many of the people who were involved in this intergenerational Inter-Everything campaign to pass this ordinance were people who've been working on this from almost the beginning of when it came to light.
On our block. On our block, 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 block. Protection from police who hinder respiratory airways. Protection from police who hinder respiratory airways.
John Burge, Commander-in-Chief.
John Burge, Commander-in-Chief, he.
Patriotic patrol and practice the pointing of missiles.
Patriotic patrol and practice the pointing of missiles.
22 future shots in the currents of electrical box.
22 future shots in the current of electrical box.
36 bodies bruised with sentence locked.
36 bodies bruised with sentence locked.
Number of times Burge experienced consequence.
0. Number of times Burge experienced consequence.
There were a whole series of other organizations that stepped up in a myriad ways, that showed up at actions, that told their people, that called their alder people, that pushed the message to the media. The Chicago Light Brigade that came in and did actions. BYP 100 came on board to do an action, for example, at the end of December, which was part of their Kwanzaa holidays piece. They did a march also and a mobilization there. There were people who were part of the kind of faith community who stepped in and stepped up. The People's Law Office obviously was very involved in the work as well through the Chicago Torture Justice Memorials and more. Elephant Rebellion came on board to help to talk to their particular alderperson and push him, Harry Osterman. They were ultimately successful in doing that. Obviously, a lot of people from Kumba Links came on board to kind of be part of learning more about what the reparations ordinance was, learning more about John Burge. Those were some of the key players in the ROM Rep Now campaign.
So 514, I got a 242 on a train that's holding there. Double about. Get details.
Hide we wear every day sits on our dresser. I'm cornered on the corner of Chicago and last chance of hope. I've been dropped out of the system created to only graduate 40% of my people.
20 years ago, the largest gathering in the history of this country occurred. The Million-Man March.
So we run, fight, we're oxygen mask, protection from police. My family, we got to fight back. My family, we got to fight back. My family, we got to fight back. Fight back. CTV, shut down. Use control, shut down. Hold this system, shut down. And I still believe in justice.
I think it's a game. I think it's a game. I think it's a game.
I think it's a joke.
I think it's a game.
I think it's a joke.
I think it's a game.
I think it's a joke.
I think it's a game.